Well, the Carolina Panthers didn't even wait till the November 1st trade deadline to get rid of Christian McCaffrey. They didn't even wait until after their Week 7 matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went about it late Thursday evening here on the East Coast. Christian McCaffrey is now a San Francisco 49er, and I'm wondering, how are we even going to be able to stomach this Panthers offense the rest of the way? We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a special episode of Locked On Panthers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure to watch the show and subscribe to the show over on our Locked On Panthers YouTube channel, where, like today, I'm doing a special live episode and trying to find how I can get y'all's chatting here so I can respond to some questions people might have. But will happen sometimes when there's breaking news, like news that came last night with Christian McCaffrey now being a San Francisco 49er. Of course, you can always check out the podcast over on all the podcasting feeds if you're not able to check out a live show like I'm doing right now. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where every single Friday I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions here on the show. Either at me or DM me on Twitter at Julian Council. Participate in next week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag. This show is made possible by our friends over at SimpliSafe. Here are three of my favorite things: football, and saving money. So let's talk about saving big money right now with SimpliSafe Home Security. They're offering Locked On Panthers listeners 40% off their advanced security system. SimpliSafe was just named the best home security of 2022 by U.S. News. They love it. I love it. You'll love it, because at SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. With 24/7 professional monitoring, when a threat is detected, SimpliSafe's monitoring professionals promptly contact you and dispatch first responders to your home, even if you're away or unable to respond. Their monitoring experts use proprietary response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Don't miss this chance to save big when you protect your home with the best. Get 40% off your order when you visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL today. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. Go today. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. So I said this on the weekly Friday mailbag that came out at 7 a.m. to all the YouTube watchers. It also came out on the podcast feed around, midnight of West Coast time. So really 15 minutes after the trade. I guess that's 3 a.m. Eastern, so never mind. But either way, had that episode, and what I was saying was the last time I was headed out of town and there was the threat of big Panthers news was back in July when I was going down to Hilton Head for vacation. And I knew that they were going to trade for Baker Mayfield at some point in time during that week. And it came on Wednesday right after I stepped off to the golf course, and there went my Wednesday afternoon trying to, give y'all the episode, going on TV in Charlotte and Cleveland and getting phone calls all over the place, talking about Baker Mayfield now being a Carolina Panther back in July. Well, today, really in about 40 minutes, I need to leave, go to the airport because I'm headed up to Providence, Rhode Island, because my buddy is getting married this weekend. And I had a feeling that with all the talk of Christian McCaffrey, possibly Shaq Thompson, which, not nearly as important as Christian McCaffrey, but the talk that either one of those guys could get traded, that it was probably going to happen as soon as I left town. Thankfully, it did not happen once I was in Rhode Island. It happened last night, and I did not see the news originally. I was going to sleep. I rolled over, accidentally knocked my phone off my dresser, picked it up, and then saw Christian McCaffrey. Was like, oh no, don't tell me they just traded him away right now to like 11:45. I guess it might have been like 11:24 last night when it happened. I saw the news, pretended like I didn't see the news, went to sleep, woke up this morning, knew I needed to do a live episode. Also makes sense to do it live now, opposed to having put something out last night when maybe y'all were asleep. I certainly was trying to go to sleep. So here we are on this special edition of Locked On Panthers, breaking down the trade of Christian McCaffrey to the San Francisco 49ers. A compensation, the Carolina Panthers traded CMC for a 2023 second-round pick, a 2023 third round pick, and a 2023 fourth round pick, plus a fifth round pick in 2024 with the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, we would have loved for this to have been a first round pick, but consider the two teams, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Media, who were in the running for Christian McCaffrey, both from the same division, and both teams, Carolina Panthers, have played and lost to in the past month. The Los Angeles Rams, who they lost to on Sunday, and the San Francisco 49ers, they lost to 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. The Rams do not have a first round pick for like the next decade, because they spent all this time getting guys like Matthew Stafford, getting rid of Jared Goff and sending him out to the Badlands, also known as Detroit, also getting guys like Jalen Ramsey. They do not have first round picks. So when you're looking at teams interested, the Rams could obviously use a running back like Christian McCaffrey. The running game's been abysmal, I think mainly because their offensive line is hurt, but still, they don't have a back of the caliber of Christian McCaffrey on that roster. They also are trying to move Cam Akers. Might have made sense in a deal potential with the Rams that brought Cam Akers here to Carolina to see if he could rejuvenate his young career. Well, we'll never know, because the Rams, I guess, did not provide enough compensation. Now, the thing the Panthers also wanted, though, was to at least get the equivalent of a first-round pick. When I was talking about Jonathan Jones, who used to write for the Charlotte Observer, now the lead NFL insider for CBS Sports on the NFL Today, he was on Sunday morning talking about the Panthers would love a first-round pick or multiple picks. So that's what happened here. The Panthers got the equivalent of a first-round pick, which can be used in multiple ways. It could be used as ammo to move up in the draft if need be, where at this point in time, hard to see them not being the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. Like, they're going to be in the top 3, especially now that Christian McCaffrey is no longer on this roster, but it gives him a possibility to just move around throughout the draft anyways, as we've seen Scott Fitterer do the last 2 years, but especially back in 2021 in his first draft here in Carolina. So the 49ers, the team that won it, also, you remember a year ago, they traded 3 first-round picks to go up and get Trey Lance. So far, that has not worked out in their favor. But this is going to help Trey Lance. And I talked about this with Christian McCaffrey. We'll get into more detail in it here in a moment about my real feelings towards this. But I talked about, if you're going to have a young quarterback, wouldn't it be great to have Christian McCaffrey out there helping him? The offensive line is already dramatically improved from where it's been the last couple of seasons. You have one of the young, talented wide receivers who's still criminally underrated, mainly because his quarterbacks around him have been god-awful, and DJ Moore. Why not have Christian McCaffrey also out there to help him? We talked about it last year with Sam Darnold. Oh, man, Sam looked so great when he had Christian, but when he didn't have Christian and the O-line was terrible, then, well, hey, Sam Darnold was the same guy we saw in New York. Shocker. Okay, maybe had Sam had him for the entire season, well, at least when he was healthy, would he have played better? It's hard not to think that would have been the case, but Sam Darnold also is not the answer. So now for San Francisco, just from looking at their perspective, well, they got a young, great player in Christian McCaffrey, who's still, this is only his 6th season in the NFL. I know the last 2 years he's been lost to injury, and that's probably been the main reason why we've had the conversations of whether he could get traded or not. And possibly that's part of the reason why they can get a first. Now, of course, 2 teams that we're offering don't have first-round picks, as I just mentioned, but even teams out there like Buffalo would have been possible. I don't know. By the way, Christian McCaffrey is now in San Francisco, and the Carolina Panthers now have their own first-round pick in 2023. They have 2 second-round picks, including their own, and now San Francisco. They've gotten a third-round pick back. They had traded it away last season when J.C. Horn went down. They sent Dan Arnold and a third-round pick over to Jacksonville for a fifth-round pick and for C.J. Henderson. That has turned out to be a terrible trade, so at least they've gotten a third-round pick back. They have 2 fourth-round picks, their own, and now San Francisco's, and they still have their 5th-round pick in 2023. The 6th-round pick belongs to New England, and the 7th-round pick, can't remember who owns that, but again, 7th-round pick, so whatever. One thing that is positive, though, as well, is that 5th-rounder in 2024, that's going to help them get back the Baker Mayfield pick. I've already said this. Don't need to see Baker Mayfield ever again in a Carolina Panthers uniform actually on the playing field during the game. He can warm up. He does not need to play, does not need to take another snap, because the condition was if he plays 70% of the snaps, that 5th-round pick in 2024 becomes a 4th-rounder for Cleveland. Now it's only going to be a 5th-rounder. Fingers crossed Panthers do the smart thing and don't play Mayfield. Play PJ, play Jacob Eason, play Sam Darnold. Don't play Baker Mayfield the rest of the way so they get that pick back. So job well done, at least by Scott Fitterer, to be able to recoup some of that draft compensation and to load up on some picks heading to the draft where they only had 4 up until about 11 o'clock last night, where the 49ers gave them 3 in this upcoming year's draft and then 1 in 2024. So positive for the Carolina Panthers to get that. Also looking at the financials of it all with Christian McCaffrey, Joel Corey, who is the cap expert over at CBS Sports, wrote about this the other day, saying the Panthers are now going to have $8 million of dead money this season, and then they'll have $18 million of dead money next year in 2023, meaning the cap savings for Christian McCaffrey is only about $1.1 million, as his cap number originally in 2023 was going to be $19.9 million. So you're going to have to eat 18.8 of that, or 0.3 of it, or whatever. And they're going to have to eat the rest of it, or they're going to only save 1.1. So not much as far as cap relief. The one positive thing, though, is moving forward as this roster continues to be rebuilt. How long is that going to take? I have no idea. Someone on here in the chat saying we are rebuilding after a 3-year rebuild. Yeah, I mean, it could be another 3-year rebuild. Who knows? Panthers didn't go about it the right way, obviously. But his cap number in 2024 and 2025 were $19.9 million and $15.4 million, respectively. Now that, of course, comes off the books because Christian McCaffrey is no longer a Carolina Panther in those years. So that's where we're at with Christian McCaffrey no longer being a Carolina Panther, just looking at the financials of it and looking at the draft compensation. Now, overall, I don't really know how to feel about this. I love Christian McCaffrey, man. I think, obviously, he's a great running back. I still feel like when he's healthy, he's the best running back in the NFL. Dalvin Cook, he's phenomenal. Of course, Derrick Henry, El Tractorcito out there in Tennessee, he's a monster. But we saw the value of Derrick Henry last year, and the Titans rolled on to be the top seed in the NFC, in the AFC, without Derrick Henry and with Deontay Foreman as their lead back for the majority of the season. Like, the running back position, it's no longer as valid as it used to be. And when we're looking at the guys that potentially could be on the trade block, we talk about Brian Burns. You can't do that. You cannot send off a young edge rusher. You look at Derek Brown. He's starting to finally play how you hoped he would play when you drafted him 7th overall in 2020. You do not get rid of someone on your defensive line who can be a monster in the interior. J.C. Horn, there's not really a conversation about him. Same thing with Jeremy Chin, was no conversation. He's also on IR, so how's that even possible? And then DJ Moore, like, do you really want to get rid of him? Because eventually you got to have somebody out there for your quarterback who comes in next year to have confidence in. But, I mean, as far as, like, positional value, defensive tackle, defensive end, wide receiver, corner, all more vital in today's game than a running back. You can find dudes to tote the rock. Now, can you find people to do what Christian McCaffrey did? Can you find one guy to do that? Unlikely. There's only a handful of them in this league. And the unfortunate thing for Christian is the last 2 years, he was injured. And we've seen in the past, whether it's been Todd Gurley, whether it was David Johnson out in Arizona, maybe Zeke Elliott, these guys, when they get paid, for whatever reason, their bodies just break down. Well, the reason is probably because this is football, which is a brutal sport to play. And when you play the running back position, all you're doing is taking hits. Now, how many hard hits did Christian take? Not too many, but unfortunately, when he did take, it seemed to keep him out for weeks at a time. So I'm disappointed to see him go. It makes sense probably long-term for the Panthers to get this draft compensation and not to be paying a running back as much as they were paying Christian McCaffrey, and they would have set to pay him the next couple of years. Makes more sense to continue to invest in guys like Brian Burns, who you're going to probably have to extend after this season. They already picked up his 5th-year option. This is the time to extend them, like with DJ Moore last year. They picked up his 5th-year option back in 2021. Go to the 2022 offseason. You got to give him some money. I see the same thing playing out with Brian Burns. You're going to probably pick up the 5th-year option for Derek Brown if he continues to play the way he's played. C.J. Henderson, can't see why they would pick up his 5th-year option. There's guys like Jeremy Chin. This is his 3rd season. I understand he's injured, but Jeremy Chin has proven to be one of the young defensive leaders on this team. You got to extend him. So those are more pressing extensions that you had already on your roster. And you also have to think about it when you don't have a rookie quarterback. You don't have that quarterback figured out, period. Not necessarily a rookie, but a quarterback figured out, period. It's really hard to plan around who you're going to sign, who you're not going to sign. And Scott Fitterer talks about, we have a plan here. We have a plan here. Okay, well, how can you plan when you don't even know if Baker was the right guy? You didn't know when Sam was the right guy. You know you want Brian Burns here. You know you want Dante Jackson here, as we found out, and DJ Moore here. But you don't know what that quarterback salary is going to look like. Now, for me, as I've said, this is going to now be not a race to the bottom. They are going to drop all the way to the bottom of the NFL. And I've said that, and I'm still kind of wrestling with it, man. If this is the worst team in the league, it can't just be the quarterback. There's got to be other things that are seriously lacking. We already talked about the pass rush. Maybe with these extra picks, they can trade up and get an edge rusher in the 2023 draft to go along with the quarterback. I don't know, but they're going to be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL. I just don't know. I mean, watching this team was already bad enough. I know not all of y'all are going to watch. Of course, keep listening, keep watching Locked On Panthers, because I'll do it for you. But, man, Sunday and the next 10 after that are going to be brutal now that Christian McCaffrey's not in this offense. Remember, they had 203 total yards on offense on Sunday in that loss to the Rams. CMC had 158 of it. The rest of the team had 45. So are we looking at 45 yards of offense on Sunday? Probably not, but would it shock you? No, this is awful. Watching how bad this team's going to be. Oh my God, moving forward. Okay. I'm going to look more at this chat. Let me get in another quick word from one of our sponsors, and that sponsor, of course, is BetOnline. BetOnline is the #1 source for all your football and NBA betting this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, let's see. We got a lot of comments here. I figure since I'm doing this live, might as well try and answer some of these questions. The weekly Friday mailbag is out. It's been out now for a little bit of time. Like an hour, 2 hours, and I'm sure plenty of people watched it and were like, "Oh, hey, you know, Christian McCaffrey already got traded." It's like, look, people, I recorded that like yesterday afternoon. How was I supposed to know that was going to happen? Okay, so let's see. Someone's asking who fits better in our offensive scheme, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. We have no idea what the offensive scheme is going to be because there was not a head coach here in Carolina. So that's something that cannot be answered at this point in time. Someone's just have hockey back. Let's see if I can find some other ones. Zach Hill is asking, why would it be settling Baker? Oh, maybe he's talking to someone in the chat. Baker Mayfield, #1 pick. Sam Darnold, #3. Trubisky, #2. They all suck. Yeah. And that's I think his overall point too is like, okay, so the Panthers are clearly going to be in position to be able to draft Bryce Young out of Alabama, CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. I always forget. Please excuse me, Buckeye fans, and Will Levis out of Kentucky. Like, those are the top 3. As I told y'all, if you watch the weekly Friday mailbag, the guy, when I look at those 3, the dude who clearly to me is the best is Bryce Young. CJ Stroud, haven't watched a lot of Ohio State this year because they haven't played anybody. I missed the Notre Dame game. And then after that, they've just been like whooping up on Wisconsin and Rutgers and whoever else plays in that side of the Big Ten. They don't play Penn State and Michigan until next month. So when they play those teams, then I'll be kind of locked in on the Buckeyes, although Penn State just got mopped last weekend by Michigan. So like clearly Penn State's no good. So really got to wait until Thanksgiving weekend to even watch a game where CJ Stroud might be tested. He won't be tested in the Big Ten championship game either because it looks like Illinois. And by the way, I had someone text me last night a photo of Illinois' running back Chase Brown being like, hey, that's our CMC replacement. I don't think there's gonna be a replacement for CMC, but what you do now is you draft someone in the middle of the draft, in the meat of the draft, where all their picks have just came from San Francisco, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Now, like I said, you have 2 seconds, 2 fourths. You can use that to draft a running back in that part of the draft. And then 4 years after they're done, you go draft someone else. You don't sign running backs. Don't ever do that again. Please. You franchise tag. Do what Pittsburgh did to Le'Veon Bell. Don't do what the Carolina Panthers and Marty Hurney did with Christian McCaffrey. Don't ever do that again. But looking at these quarterbacks, though, like I think Bryce Young's the best. I go back to that Texas game. Alabama was awful against Texas. And if Quinn Ewers not gotten hurt, I think Texas wins that football game. But Bryce Young found a way. On Saturday in Knoxville and Neyland Stadium, that dude was awesome. Hendon Hooker looked great too. And I've already seen people saying in the chat, Hendon Hooker, like that's the guy. I think he's going to be 25 come draft time. Apparently that's going to be a knock on him. If he can play, he can play. Like, I don't think it really matters how old the dude is. Like, clearly he's turned into one of the better quarterbacks. Now, the thing about Hendon Hooker to understand is look at the offensive scheme and just how wide, especially to the field side, his wide receivers are lined up. Like, they got dudes who are lined up like 2 yards away from the boundary. Like they're running a Mickey Mouse offense from the context of the NFL game. What he is doing in Josh Heupel's system does not necessarily translate to what he's going to have to do on Sunday. Does that mean he cannot do it? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. Just understand what you're seeing right now in Knoxville is not necessarily going to be the system he runs in the NFL. It's not necessarily. It's not going to be what he runs in the NFL. So understand that when evaluating, but also understand like he looks freaking awesome. LSU game a couple weeks ago, he had a deep ball, I think, in that first half. That was just one of the best balls I've seen all year in college football. The dude's money. I love Hendon Hooker. Excited for him. I mean, he's a Greensboro kid. So anybody from North Carolina that's balling out on the college level, happy for him and what he's been able to do so far at Tennessee. And good to see the Vols back, as much as I can't stand Vols fans at times. But yeah, like Bryce Young, I just look at him as being the best. And I know there's people like, oh, we've seen him so many batted balls and he's short, and I already have someone right here saying it. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to be the best in the NFL. It's a crapshoot. I have no idea which is going to be the best. All I'm saying is, of the guys I've seen on Saturdays, Bryce Young is the best one in my eyes. We have the entire draft cycle to pick apart how terrible of human beings they are and all the things that they love to do in the NFL draft, which is why I hate the NFL draft. It's like, hey, let's spend 3 months just crapping on every single one of these college players. I love college football and I love watching them play. It's like, hey, let's enjoy them. But once they get to the NFL, like, hey, let's find a way to see what's everything wrong with them. Hard pass on that. I think Bryce Young's excellent. C.J. Stroud's excellent. Will Levis in his own right, having played in an NFL scheme the last 2 years, that same scheme that hopefully will be coming here to Carolina, the Shanahan scheme. Hopefully, maybe Will Levis can be here because he's run it. I don't think he's better than Young or Stroud, but he has the makeup, and the NFL falls in love with traits. Everyone in the league is going to convince themselves that he's going to be the next Josh Allen. Those are wild expectations. Caleb Williams, by the way, is not eligible to come out. So let's maybe, if you want to tank another year, then certainly Caleb Williams, come on down. I would be saying selfishly, Drake May, come home. But I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be a Carolina Panther. At least, Panthers should already have their quarterback by then. But Levis can be good. We'll see. I'm not going to sit here and really make any definitive statements on who's going to be better, because I really don't know. Like as I've said, I don't know. And I understand, I'm seeing it. People are hesitant about the Ohio State quarterback deal just because, and it's weird because Ohio State has, of course, as you know, one of the best traditions in college football, as far as especially winning. And to see that they've never really had a quarterback in the NFL who's been a franchise guy is confusing and alarming at the same time. I think it also shows you just how Ohio State out-talents everyone they play in college. And then you see, like, hey, they get to the NFL, like Dwayne Haskins, may rest in peace. I mean, Haskins had his other issues that led to him not being a success in Washington. But also, like, hey, man, when you got the best receivers in the world, it's going to be pretty easy. Like, we looked at it with Justin Fields. When you have Chris Olave, who's stepped in the NFL and been amazing right away, and you have Garrett Williams, and you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who really was a Stroud guy last year, you're going to look really good. And this year, I mean, good God, the receivers Ohio State gets, they get receivers better than anyone else in college football. With Brian Hartline, their wide receiver coach, he's done a great job in developing those guys and being able to recruit them. So whoever plays that a quarterback at Ohio State is going to have the best skill talent in the entirety of the NFL. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, let's see. Let me look at more of these. Who would have more batted passes when they played Baker or Kyler? It was Baker. Okay, that's some people are arguing with each other in the chat. Let's see. Are the Panthers safe to stay? Yes. Okay. We've been over this. Y'all, please stop asking me if the team's going to move. They're not moving. Just find me where are they going to move the Carolina Panthers in America? Where are they going to move them to? Okay. Someone said, should we just re-sign everyone and be bad next year? Then in 2024, we'll go after big name free agents to help the rookie quarterback. I don't know how far away this team really is. Like, let's look at the position groups right now. As I probably got to get out of here soon. Let's look at the position groups right now. Offensive line is so much better. Like, I'm not concerned about O-line. And you of course have Icky. Brady is locked up. Elfline has another year. You have Corbett locked up. You got Taylor Moton. So all 5 of those guys have played every snap. It doesn't look like Elfline's going to play on Sunday. He didn't practice the last 2 days. We'll see if he practices later today. I don't I don't know. Haven't really heard anything about that. So it looks like Bradley Bozeman is going to get an opportunity. But overall, the guys who've been the starters for the first 6 games should all be back. So the O-line, not an issue. Wide receiver, that was one of the position groups I came into the year wondering about. Like, we know how good DJ Moore is. Robbie Anderson, goodbye forever. He had a great year in 2020. Then last year wasn't great. I was wondering, hey, is he going to bounce back? I think he's their leading receiver, but he's no longer here. And of course was not going to be around here long term. But then after that, like Terrace, he's injured all the time. Then he loses his gig to Shi Smith. Shi has done nothing to really show that he was deserving, that he really should be still in the third. Not going to say that he wasn't deserving of it coming out of camp, because certainly he was, but he has not shown anything since the season began to show why he's retained that spot. We'll see what Laviska Shenault can do, but still wide receiver. Like, I think they need to go out there and get some other guys, because there's only one proven dude, and Shi hasn't done anything yet. Terrace hasn't done anything yet. And Laviska Shenault, I mean, he hasn't done nearly enough for me to sit here and be like, yeah, they're totally good. Tight end, completely worst position group in the entire NFL here in Carolina. So they got to find new tight ends, new receivers. So just looking at the offense as a whole, like O-line, great, which you got to have a good O-line. Quarterback's terrible. You got to find another running back. You need to find more receivers. You need to find new tight ends. So the Carolina Panthers are going to have to rebuild that skill position group on offense, in my opinion. Just looking at what they have out there. Like, you have guys in DJ Moore, you got the O-line. Outside of that, you got to find somebody else at running back, tight end, and in more receivers who you could actually rely on. Can you do that in free agency? I don't know. You probably need to do it through the draft and hope that that guy clicks immediately. Now, they already did that kind of with the draft, Terrace Marshall, and it hasn't worked out. Get someone who's been healthy and not someone who's banged up coming into camp. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball, D-line. I mean, I guess Gross Mono's going to be here for another year. You're still going to have guys like Bravion Roy who are going to be kind of in the background. Maybe he's a Baylor guy, so a lot of those Baylor guys probably are not going. Well, they're definitely not going to be here next year. Derek Brown, of course, Ioannidis. Don't see him being back because he's a Baylor guy or a Temple guy technically, or not technically. He is a Temple guy, but a rule dude. So you're going to have to find more guys on the defensive line. You're going to have to find another edge rusher opposite of Brian Burns, because currently there just is not someone out there who you can rely on. So right there, defensive line, you're going to have to find some pieces there. Linebacker, Lord. If Shaq Thompson leaves, which is still rumored, he might be gone. You drafted Brandon Smith. We haven't really seen much of him at all. Damian Wilson can be cut if they want to. Corey Littleton's only here on a 1-year deal. And you have Frankie Louvu locked up. Like, Louvu's fine. Like, Louvu and Brandon Smith are the only two guys you know for sure going to be back at linebacker. Like, that's absolutely a position group that you have to address probably early on in the draft, or you can find a good free agent. The draft is the way to go. And then in the secondary, like, they're fine. You got Jeremy Chin. You have Xavier Woods locked up at safety. Of course, you got Dante. You got JC. So secondary, not worried about that. But the other two levels of the defense, you got to find some players. So I like that. Like, and people are asking who the foundational pieces are. Like, Brian Burns on defense is, Jeremy Chin is, Derek Brown, JC Horn. You can even throw in Dante, Shaq, as long as he's here, as just like those veteran foundational pieces. Then on offense, you got Taylor Moton, you got Ike Ekwonu, you got DJ Moore. Outside of that, everyone else is pretty much expendable. So that just kind of, when you really look at the roster as a whole, like, there were some nice pieces to like. And I like the holes that they had filled in the offseason. And they're going to have to continue to do that, because those are the guys you're going to build around. The Panthers have to do that again, while also trying to fix the issues they have with their skill positions now and at quarterback. Like, that's a pretty big ask going into this offseason. And that's why it was important that they did get rid of McCaffrey, as much as like it hurts to see McCaffrey leave, as much as like I love watching the dude play. And it sucks that he never got to do anything special here. Like, he did special things like individually, but as a team, his rookie year was the only year when he was still the backup to Jonathan Stewart. And after that, when it was his team, or at least his job, he was great. But as we saw, they fell apart in the second half of the season 2018 when Cam's shoulder was done. Cam gets hurt in New England, plays 2 games, is clearly way off of it. Y'all lie to yourselves and tell yourself that Kyle Allen was the franchise. He ends up to stink. Shocker. And that season falls apart, and there's a gross sweat stain. And then 2020, he was, I mean, of course, in 19, he was great, but 2020, he was injured. 2021, he was injured. And then this year, he's been good, but here we go. So Yeah, so Christian's gone, and clearly this roster build is going to be, it's going to take time. And I don't want to wait, but we're going to have to wait. I don't think it's one of those things where it gets turned around immediately next year. If you get a rookie quarterback, they're going to have their bumps and bruises. And the frustrating thing for me, and I think for a lot of fans is too, it's like, okay, so like someone just brought up, the Panthers had a 3-year rebuild. I mean, they're not even really in they're not in the end of year 3. They had like a 3-year rebuild or whatever. And now they're entering another potential 3-year rebuild because you're getting a new quarterback. Hopefully you're doing it the right way this time. You're getting a new head coach. I think the general manager is staying here, Scott Fitterer. I don't think they would allow Fitterer to make this trade of Christian McCaffrey, who's going to stick around. So Fitterer is going to be here. So you're going to have the same GM who's going to be in the meeting rooms to get a new head coach. So new head coach, and then you're going to have a new quarterback, among other changes on the roster. Like, it's going to take time. And when you look at it too, like these rookie quarterbacks, and it's not until like year 3 where you really know whether these dudes are good or not. We've seen it like with Josh Allen, because he wasn't very good his first 2 years, but then, hey, year 3 broke out, was awesome. Like, there's other people like Mahomes who come in and immediately are great. Like Justin Herbert's been immediately great. Has that resulted in playoff success or going to the playoffs yet? No. But typically, like, you give them about 3 years, see if they're any good, and that's when you have to make a decision on whether to exercise their 5th-year option. We saw in New York with Sam Darnold, they didn't want to do that. They did it in Cleveland, but later on decided, hey, we don't want to pay this guy. So you really got to wait for 3 years, even though if you have the right guy at quarterback, unless a Young or a Stroud or a Levis or maybe even Hendon Hooker come out immediately and show like, oh, I'm that guy. So buddy, it's tough. It's going to be painful. So just be patient, y'all. Just be patient. Wish CMC the best of luck. He did tweet out, being thankful about all of his time here in Carolina and yada, yada, yada. So good for him. Sorry to see you go. That sucks. Okay, so I'm going to go to the airport, get up to Providence, PVD, and go enjoy the rest of my weekend. And fingers crossed, Panthers don't make any more trades. I don't think, unless they trade like Brian Burns or DJ Moore, which they basically said is not going to happen, I don't think that there's going to be anything other. Knock on wood, big news. So I should be free to go do that, and I'll be back Sunday, and I can talk to you all about the Panthers definitely losing to the Buccaneers because they are not going to win when Christian McCaffrey's not on the roster. Like, they're definitely going to get their ass kicked on Sunday against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Like, this is going to be a brutal watch. It's already bad. We need to actually like start looking at the historical context of how bad this offense is could possibly be, and like look out at the rest. Like, they're going to suck the rest of the year. Like, oh my God. That one just like hit home, right? Like, I finally just realized like how bad it's going to be the rest of the year not having Christian McCaffrey. And I got to sit here and watch this stuff. But hey, y'all, please keep checking out the podcast. Again, we're part of Locked On Podcast Network. Watch us here on YouTube, where you can, of course, check out some of these live episodes. And hopefully there won't be too many of these, but whenever big news like this happens, of course, I try to go live and to give you all the best show I can give you in a crunch. So then check us out, of course, subscribe on YouTube, tell your friends about it, tell your mom, tell your aunt, tell everybody, tell your little cousin, I don't know, take someone's phone and, make them subscribe to the show, even if they don't listen to the show. Like, steal the phone, go to Spotify, go to Apple Music, give it 5 stars and make them subscribe. And also follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where every Friday I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. That's right. So either at me or DM me and ask me a question for next week, and I will get to it next Friday. In the meantime, stay safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. I'm headed up to PVD. I'll be back Sunday. Goodbye.